En el cuarto alto cae un silencio así. El maestro entra con su paz aquí. 12 corazones laten con temor y fe. Un aliento del cielo desciende, ya se ve. En la mesa del maestro el amor se dio, no con la espada, sino a quien libertó. Pan de vida, cáliz de verdad, Jesús nos llama a la unidad. Jesús nos llama a la unidad. Nos lava los pies con un gesto de más. Tira todo orgullo, nos alza en su paz. Ámense unos a otros como yo los amé. Su reino vive dentro si sabemos amar bien.
Beloved Father, on this day we want to thank you for having selected us as the planet that was designated for your Son to be born and live in this world, this small and remote planet. He came to show us his personhood, his beauty, and his love via his own life. We thank you for each and every one of the instances that he spent on this planet and showed us the path returning home. Thank you for having blessed us so much. Thank you for everything that he did on this planet to show you to us and to show us spiritual realities. It was a great privilege to have been able to receive him firsthand in his 7th bestowal in this planet, living with him, playing with him, walking with him, being instructed by him. Thank you, because he taught us how you are. In his life, he did your will. Always, he loved you, and he shared with your mind and with your divine guidance in this small little corner of his universe. He taught us with his own life as the Son of Man how to be your children. He loved us and we loved him as well while he walked on this earth. We can only thank you, Father, for his marvelous presence that you provided, that you sent him, and that he showed us the realities of life, spiritual realities, and the wealth of material life and spiritualized life. Thank you so much for the great gift of having that beautiful child being born and growing with us, for us, and with us. And also thank you for the opportunity to celebrate today his birthday. And thank you, everyone that made this day possible. Thank you, eternal thank you. Amen. Amen. What a great joy to gather today to share this marvelous celebration. May you all be very welcome to this space, an encounter, which is already an annual tradition, and we are all having a communion here. To begin formally our event, we will have a few opening remarks by Sue Snyder, president of the Urantia Book Fellowship. Sue, it is an honor to have you with us. The word is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you. I hope that my internet holds up. I'm down in Texas with the Angels Conference. They all sent their greetings and hello. I wanted to start by giving you a quote from paper 120. Urantia mortals have varying concepts of the miraculous, but to us who live as citizens in the local universe, there are few miracles. And of these, by far the most intriguing are the incarnational bestowals of the Paradise Sons. The appearance in and on your world by apparently natural processes of a divine son we regard as a miracle, the operation of universal laws beyond our understanding. Jesus of Nazareth was a miraculous person. So part of what makes the birth of Jesus so awe-inspiring to me is the story of the seventh bestowal. It's a masterclass on trust, faith, and courage. For his final bestowal, our Creator chose to appear as the most vulnerable version of a mortal possible, a newborn baby. He knew that there would be a period when he would be not yet self-aware of who he really was, and so would be unable or unwilling to use his divine powers to be able to protect Nebadon. But he had the comforting reassurance that Emmanuel, his brother, and the Ancients of Days would be keeping watch over the universe to make sure that any attempt at mutiny was resulting in, I quote, the instantaneous and automatic extinction of any being guilty of rebellion or presuming to instigate insurrection in the universe of Nebadon while he was absent on his bestowal. So Emmanuel on paper 120 also tried to prepare Michael. He said, heretofore you have appeared on your bestowal spheres as a fully developed being of the order of your choosing. Now you are to appear upon Urantia, the disordered and disturbed planet of your choice. Not as a fully developed mortal, but as a helpless babe. This, my comrade, will be a new and untried experience for you. You are about to pay the full price of bestowal and to experience the complete enlightenment of the incarnation of a creator in the likeness of a creature. He said to Michael, in entering upon the Urantia bestowal, you have voluntarily divested yourself of all extraplanetary support and special assistance, such as might be rendered by any creature of your own creation. As your created sons of Nebadon are wholly dependent upon you for safe conduct throughout their universe careers, so now must you be wholly and unreservedly dependent upon your Paradise Father for safe conduct throughout the unrevealed vicissitudes of your ensuing mortal career. You may proceed upon your mission, but with a single thought, the enhanced revelation of our Father to the intelligent beings of your universe. You will grow up on Urantia as a child of the realm. Complete your human education, all the while subject to the will of your Paradise Father. So this is in paper 120, and the last part of the paper, I believe, was the inspiration for a poem that I'd like to read you. It says, exhibit in your one short life in the flesh, as it has never been seen before in all of Nebadon, the transcendent possibilities attainable by a God-knowing human during the short career of mortal existence. So the poem I'd like to read you is called The Galilean. I don't know what year it was written, but I know when I found it, I cut it out and I glued it to some construction paper and made a Christmas ornament out of it. So I must have been pretty young. And every Christmas I hang this handmade ornament on my tree, along with about 75 other angels, which is the theme of our Christmas tree ornaments. But this one is still my favorite, or one of my favorites. It says, as a child he came to us, born of the womb of infinity, wrapped in the swaddling clothes of time and space. The sovereign of stars and smoldering suns he was. His hands had held the very planets in their paths. His fingers formed this glowing galaxy. He sprinkled the blackened sky with glistening beads of liquid light and hung the midnight with 1,000 diamond constellations, all linked like necklaces across the jeweler's velvet cloth. As a child, he came to us, born much as each of us is born, but he lived among us as few have dared to even try. In Jesus, we caught a glimpse of God as neither prior nor since seen, and we have not forgotten it. The world can never be the same again, for we have seen what God is and have seen what we can be. So thank you for allowing me to share this most inspiring celebration with you.
Thank you, Sue, for those beautiful words. And thank you for sharing that poem with us that touched our hearts. And I'm going to steal that for this Christmas myself and put it on my Christmas tree. Now, please, Mo, a few words from Mo for all of this audience that is here. And we want to listen to you now. Welcome, Mo.
Can you hear me? Good morning. Pablo, thank you for inviting me today. Michael, happy birthday. Jesus, happy birthday. I've been thinking a lot about the Master in my life and in your life and all of our lives. And for a long time, because of reading the Revelation and the impact of part 4, I felt like it was always Jesus. But today, age 76, reading the book for 55 years, I think of Michael as Michael. And it is beyond my comprehension to understand how Michael can be the Creator's Son and still Jesus in his life experience. As Sue said, it's a miracle. But we are living on his planet. And I don't know if you said this, but I'm president of Urantia Foundation and have had the joy and opportunity to serve as a trustee for nearly 30 years. Actually, a dream job. And I have come to realize that I don't work for the foundation. And I don't really work for the revelation. We work for Michael. This is his world. This is the world of his bestowal. It's his planet. It's his local universe. And the transcendent opportunity to be able to serve him, serve our local universe government, and specifically living the teachings of this glorious revelation is an opportunity that is mathematically hard to conceive. So I'm going to give you just a few numbers. And by the way, the Spirit of Truth is with us. So, Michael, did I forget to mention happy birthday? Actually, happy birthday, Jesus. So here's the math. We are one planet out of about 3,900,000 worlds, inhabited worlds in Nebadon. So right there, mathematically, the odds of us being on a planet is 1 to 3,900,000. And if you ever play lottery, those are not great odds. So the truth of us being on his planet, in his local universe, the odds are extremely low that we would ever experience it. And then if you go on and say in those worlds, there is about, let's say, an average of 2 billion people on each planet. The odds that we would be living on Michael's planet is 8 billion, considering there's 8 billion people in this world. Actually, for each one of us individually, it is 1 to 7.8 quadrillion chances. I don't even know what quadrillion looks like. AI gave me that number. I'm assuming it's correct. But you think about that, 1 in 7.8 quadrillion chances. And for us individually, we are one person with 8 billion people on this planet. And we have had this opportunity. So if you mathematically tie all of that together, which I didn't, the odds that we could be living on Urantia, on Michael's world, on Jesus's world of bestowal is so minute, such a atomic microfiber of being. And why do I say this? You, in wherever you're calling in from, and a lot of Latin America, are the pioneers of a new revelation. We are the spreaders of the new gospel of the Master. And with our courage and wisdom and brotherhood and sisterhood, and I mean brotherhood and sisterhood with no barriers. The early Christians fought with each other. We're not going to do that. We're going to love one another and portray that love out to a world that is in great need of love. Our chances of having this opportunity are 1 in the quadrillions. Our lifespan on this planet is very short. And so I feel so thankful that Michael chose this world, that the life of Jesus was such an extraordinary, eye-opening lens to our Father. And may we all unitedly go about doing our Father's will. And what is our Father's will? I've been up here in the mountains with a group of executives from companies. And we've all been talking about the world conditions. And the world is struggling, as we all know, an evolutionary planet on its way, the long evolutionary grinding planet toward the someday world of light and light. But it's not easy on this planet. So what is God's will for your life and my life? Mother Teresa said it beautifully, give until it hurts. Selflessly, loyally, in service to Michael, in service to our fellows. And what does the will of God specifically look like? Well, the book says there are 2 things, sharing the inner life and living by the fruits of the Spirit. And with this group of executives yesterday, I read the fruits of the Spirit to the group. And there wasn't a person in that group. We had 1 Muslim, 1 woman from Asia, and then some Americans, and not only 1 besides me that was a really strong Jesus follower. And I read the fruits of the Spirit, and everybody was nodding their head, yes. And it is the way to peace on this planet. It is the pathway to love. And it is what Michael has asked us to do, live by the fruits of the Spirit. So to all of you, whatever you're doing, attending study groups, which by the way is vital. Go to a study group, go every week. If it's boring, make it better. If it's great, participate. Study groups are the best way that we can spread the teachings in a safe and protectable way, and also have community without the forming of another giant church. So, in your love of one another, go forward and serve while you have a chance, this rare opportunity on this planet. Give, love. Michael is behind you. The Spirit of truth will guide you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. What a pleasure to hear the president of the foundation with those words. Thank you. Beautiful words. Thank you. And obey. Yes, let's obey. Let's act. Let's put ourselves to the service of the world and as the world needs it. Thank you so much, Mo. Now, we will continue with a few words by the president of the Urantia Association International, Lynn St. Pierre. She was unfortunately not be able to come today, but she sent us a video.
Welcome, family, to this special celebration of Jesus' birth. During this gathering, we will be reminded of the beautiful and inspiring moments in the life of our Master Jesus. This event reminds us that Jesus was born and lived among us as a human being. But more importantly, it reminds us of the way he lived and of the incomparable example and inspiration he left us. His love for others, his compassion, and his magnificent personality inspire us to live in fellowship with everyone around us. Jesus showed us the way, and he is the way. He lived as an humble and good man who went about doing good. Today, let us remember Jesus and his love for all people without exception. And let us honor him together through this joyful celebration. A heartfelt thank you to all the organizers, the presenters, and all of you for participating and making this celebration possible. Welcome, everyone, and may you enjoy this beautiful reunion.
Very well. Now, a few words of reflection for Andres Radatos. Welcome.
Bem-vindas, irmãos e irmãs, e feliz aniversario, mestre. Bienvenidos, hermanos y hermanas, y feliz cumpleaños, maestro. Bienvenue, frères et sœurs, et joyeux anniversaire au maître. Bonne fête aussi. And welcome, sisters and brothers, and happy birthday, master. These selected readings cover 5 elements of the master's life. Emmanuel's 7th bestowal commission, his birth, his full experience of how humans live up to his baptism, the lessons from the cross, and his bestowal of the Spirit of truth. And one more thing. Your earth life in the likeness of mortal flesh shall not be so lived as to constitute an example for the mortals of Urantia in the days of your earthly sojourn, nor for any subsequent generation of human beings on Urantia or on any other world. Rather shall your life in the flesh on Urantia be the inspiration for all lives upon all Nebadon worlds throughout all generations and the ages to come. Throughout your Urantia bestowal, you need be concerned with but one thing: the unbroken communion between you and your Paradise Father. And it will be by the perfection of such a relationship that the world of your bestowal, even all the universe of your creation, will behold a new and more understandable revelation of your Father and my Father, the universal Father of all. At noon, August 21st, 7 BC, with the help and kind ministrations of women fellow travelers, Mary was delivered of a male child. Jesus of Nazareth was born into the world. In just the same manner as all babies before that day and since have come into the world, the promised child was born. And on the 8th day, according to the Jewish practice, he was circumcised and formally named Joshua, Jesus. Son of Man, during the time and through the experiences of this tour of the Roman world, practically completed his educational contact training with the diversified peoples of the world of his day and generation. By the time of his return to Nazareth, through the medium of this travel training, he had just about learned how man lived and wrought out his existence on Urantia. He met and loved all manner of men, rich and poor, high and low, black and white, educated and uneducated, cultured and uncultured, animalistic and spiritual, religious and irreligious, moral and immoral. When Jesus of Nazareth went down into the Jordan to be baptized, he was a mortal of the realm who had attained the pinnacle of human evolutionary ascension in all matters related to the conquest of mind and to self-identification with the Spirit. He stood in the Jordan that day, a perfected mortal of the evolutionary worlds of time and space. Perfect synchrony and full communication had become established between the mortal mind of Jesus and the indwelling spirit adjuster, the divine gift of his Paradise Father. And just such an adjuster indwells all normal beings living on Urantia since the ascension of Michael to the headship of his universe. Jesus loves men so much that his love awakens the response of love in the human heart. Love is truly contagious and eternally creative. Jesus' death on the cross exemplifies a love which is sufficiently strong and divine to forgive sin and swallow up all evil doing. Jesus disclosed to this world a higher quality of righteousness than justice, mere technical right and wrong. Divine love does not merely forgive wrongs, it absorbs and actually destroys them. The chief mission of this outpoured Spirit of the Father and the Son is to teach men about the truths of the Father's love and the Son's mercy. These are the truths of divinity which men can comprehend more fully than all the other divine cakes of character. Spirit of truth is concerned primarily with the revelation of the Father's spirit nature and the Son's moral character. The Creator Son in the flesh revealed God to men. The Spirit of truth in the heart reveals the Creator's Son to men. When man yields the fruits of the Spirit in his life, he is simply showing forth the traits which the Master manifested in his own earthly life. When Jesus was on earth, he lived his life as one personality, Jesus of Nazareth. as the indwelling spirit of the new teacher.
Andre, you're muted.
Muted me. Someone muted me, sorry. I don't know what you missed, but muito obrigado.
It was too
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Merci beaucoup. Gracias.
you. Thank you.
Gabriel surge ante María, un secreto inexplicable. Es mi bebé indefenso, creador del universo. ¿Cómo le explico a José? Pensó María insegura. Un ser celestial en sueños le puso fin a las dudas. La familia fue a Belén en la época del censo. En un establo sencillo llegaría el nacimiento, el más grande y más capaz, sin palacio ni esplendor, para todo su universo, ejemplo del creador, creador para sus huestes, promesa de su mamá, un amigo entre vecinos, y para ti quién será, creador para sus huestes, promesa de su mamá, un amigo entre vecinos, y para ti quién será. Una vida a Alejandría y un regreso a Nazaret, mientras Jesús entre juegos ya comenzaba a crecer. María no le quitaba nunca los ojos de encima, que nada pueda pasarle era casi su rutina. Curioso y observador, preguntaba sin cesar, poniendo siempre en aprietos a quien fuera a interpelar. Primera elección moral, un día 11 de febrero, llegó su chispa divina, vibró el universo entero. Creador para sus huestes, promesa de su mamá, un amigo entre vecinos, y para ti quién será. Creador para sus huestes, promesa de su mamá, un amigo entre vecinos, y para ti quién será. Y para ti quién será.
Thank you, Sue, Lynn, Mo, and Andre. I would like to take a couple of minutes to share something with all of you. A few weeks ago, I agreed to participate in a very interesting game that some people would like to bring to social media. During that conversation, I mentioned something about today's celebration. And just before the person disconnected, he asked me 3 questions. And he said, please send me the answers. So I hope that somehow that person is watching this event today. So my first answer is, 20 centuries ago, an entire people shared a message. In God we believe. And there, in the midst of that Hebrew people, a true miracle occurred, the 4th epochal revelation. My second answer, 2 centuries ago, a nation began to identify itself with a phrase that in the last century, it officially adopted as its motto, in God we trust. And there, the 5th epochal revelation was delivered. And the third answer has to do with a look toward the future. For that, my answer is, I think that someday we could perhaps have a united state of the world, whose spiritual motto could be, God we love. And when our faith is fully manifested as love for God, when that love becomes real in the hearts and the minds of the inhabitants of this world, perhaps we might behold a humanity closer to what we might call the brotherhood of the united mortals of Urantia. A world where these words of Jesus becomes truly alive among us. Love one another even as I have loved you. And it is precisely toward that great spiritual horizon that our celebration today is directed. But to understand it more deeply, we must return to the beginning of this story. We must look back to that moment, about 40,000 years ago, when Urantia was chosen as the word of the final bestowal of our Creator's Son. So now, I invite you to begin this journey. Let us listen in the voice of Michael of Nebadon to how this decision of love began.
Antes de que me conocierais como Jesús de Nazaret.
Before even Urantia
existiera,
already existed, I was already. I'm Michael of Nebadon, the creator's son of this local universe. 6 times I had lived among different orders of my creatures. I had known their natures, their struggles, their possibilities, and their limitations. But the final bestowal still remained, to live the life of one of the humblest among my creatures, capable of knowing God, a mortal being of flesh and bone. That would be my 7th bestowal, and it would be different from all the previous bestowals. I would not appear as a fully developed being. I would not descend as a ruler. I would come as a mortal of the mortal beings of time, being born of a woman, growing as a child, living amongst men as one of them. And then the greatest question arose. On what world should I fulfill that final bestowal? It would not be a casual choice. It was a matter of choosing the stage on which I would reveal in one mortal life the most beautiful truth in the entire universe, that God is the Father and that his creatures are his children. My choice was announced to all of Nebadon. And from then on, for more than 35,000 years, of the times of that world, Urantia occupied a conspicuous place in the councils of the universe. It was not the largest world. It was not the most stable world. It was not the most favored world by the circumstances. It was a wounded world, a world marked by ancient pain, by confusion, by rebellion, by fear, by the consequences of accumulated errors and failures. But I want to clarify something to you. I did not choose it because my father needed to be reconciled with men. No, I chose it because against the background of a darkened world, there could be revealed with greater clarity the patience of the Father, his mercy, his passion, his compassion, his unfailing love. I chose this planet as the final bestowal stage. I chose it to live there, not as a visible sovereign, but as the Son of Man. I chose it to know from within the experience of mortal life, the fragility of infancy, the learning of childhood, the decisions of youth, the work of the human faith, the waiting, the fatigue, human love, daily life amongst my own children, and thus my sovereignty over Nebadon would not merely be a creator power, but perfect understanding, merciful justice, and proven love in the life of my creatures. From ancient times, even in the days of Adam and Eve, there were those who came to hope that a divine Son of God would one day come to this world. And although they could not fully understand it, that hope was not in vain. Urantia, a small and troubled planet and tribulation world, had been chosen. And when the proper time came, it was necessary to prepare the human stage for that bestowal. The people had to be chosen. The family had to be chosen so that I could enter that world by the mortal path, born of a woman, growing up as a child in silence and humbleness, independence, and true humanity. For that reason, I entrusted Gabriel with a great mission. He would study the conditions of this planet. He would assess the peoples, their religions, their cultures, their language, their history, and their position in the course of their nations. And thus, from Salvington, with full knowledge, with deliberate love, and with profound joy, I pointed toward that small world in the outer domains of my local universe, Urantia. Listen to how it all began in the human sphere, because once the world was chosen, it was necessary to choose the time, the place, and the actual home. Greetings to everyone. I am Gabriel of Salvington, the firstborn of Nebadon. My father designated me the task of selecting the place and family where he would bestow himself as a mortal being. And after Urantia was chosen, and after studying the different human groups, I visited this world. The observations necessary for the decision were based upon geographic conditions, the means of communications, culture, language, and the spiritual and intellectual and racial viewpoints of these peoples. These were concrete reasons, strategic reasons to choose the people where Michael would bestow himself to live as one more of them. My decision was that the Hebrews actually met these necessary conditions. Palestine had cities such as Nazareth, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and the city of Judah. I was situated very at the crossroads between East and West, the center of the great civilizations of the ancient world, and any great teachings that would arose there could spread across all the directions with relative ease. The Jewish communities were scattered throughout the entire Greco-Roman world, from Mesopotamia all the way to Rome, from Alexandria to Asia Minor, creating a network for dissemination that would have that other people would have at that time. And Greek, the common language of the Hellenistic world, allowed these ideas to cross borders without language barriers. From all the peoples of the world, the Hebrews were virtually the ones that maintained an enduring faith in only one God, a fundamental requirement for the message that the promised Son would bring to this world. It was also necessary to have a home that would welcome this divine Son. I convened a commission of 12 personalities among the highest of the universe, charged with the mission of investigating the Jewish family life. They gave me a report proposing 3 couples, equally favorable, all of them. I chose Joseph and Mary because they represented the most best racial connections and personality endowments between the Hebrews of their times. Chosen the region and chosen the family, there remained another challenge to prepare them to receive the child that would be the liberator of mankind, the divine teacher. I organized a plan. First, I visited Elizabeth. After, I visited Mary, her cousin. I am Elizabeth, the mother of John. Zacharias, my husband, was a Jewish priest. We had been married for many years without having children. It was at the late of June of 8 BC, 3 months after the betrothal of Joseph and Mary. Zacharias was officiating before the altar in Jerusalem, and the people outside were praying, waiting for the coming of a liberator. At noon, Gabriel appeared to me. He told me that I would soon have a son, the forerunner of the divine teacher, and that I should call him John. That when he reached maturity, he would turn many souls to God, and he would proclaim the spiritual liberator of all mankind, and that my relative Mary would be the mother of that son of promise. The visit left me frightened. I kept a secret for a few months, without telling anyone, not even Zacharias. When I finally told him, he doubted for weeks. He only began to believe when he could no longer doubt of my pregnancy. A few weeks before John was born, he had a dream that finally convinced him. I am Mary. I was born in Galilee. In the outskirts of Nazareth, my parents formed a united Jewish family of 5 children. Well-educated, united, surrounded by relatives and good friends. I was an average woman of my time, an expert weaver, skilled in the arts of the home. I descend from a long line of notable women in history, Eve, Ruth, and Tamara, amongst many others, Jewish by culture and beliefs. But my racial heritage was a combination of several ancient peoples. Of an optimistic temperament, always cheerful, I freely expressed my emotions. I was practical and I knew how to plan my steps. To renovate the house, my father hired a young carpenter. He was brunette, with black eyes. One day, in a gesture of kindness, at mealtime, I took him a cup of water. I believe that at that instant, we fell in love. We had a courtship of almost 2 years within the customs of our people. In March of 8 years BC, we were married according to Jewish customs. We moved to the south of Nazareth to a simple house with a flat roof, a space for animals. We had a low stone table, pots, earthworks, vessels, a loom, and an oil lamp. Behind the house, there was an oven and a hand mill for wheat. One afternoon, before Joseph returned, I was beside the stone table when all of a sudden, Gabriel appeared to me. He spoke to me with clarity that I will never forget. He told me that he came on behalf of his master, whom I was to love and to care for, that the life conceived within was the will of the heavens. I did not know this yet, but a day had passed since I was already pregnant. He announced that I would be the mother to a son that he would call Jesus, that I would establish the kingdom of heaven on earth. He asked me to keep this in secret, to only speak with Joseph and with my cousin Elizabeth, whom he had also visited. Very soon she would give birth to John, the forerunner of this divine teacher, and he departed and told me that the power of the Most High would strengthen me. I kept a secret for weeks until I was certain of my pregnancy. Later, I told Joseph that I wanted to travel to the city of Judah to visit my cousin Elizabeth. He agreed, and I set out on a journey. I stayed with Elizabeth for 3 weeks. We compared every detail of what each of us had heard and felt and feared. We spoke about the
Hablamos
probable
del
future
futuro
of our
probable de
sons.
nuestros hijos.
Elizabeth did much for me
Elizabeth
during
hizo
those
mucho por mí
weeks.
en aquellas semanas.
My faith was greatly
Mi fe se
strengthened at her
fortaleció
side.
enormemente a su lado.
On my way back to
En mi
Nazareth,
camino de
I visited
regreso a
my
Nazaret,
parents.
visité a mis
I could
padres.
not tell them
No pude
everything,
contarles todo.
but I did confide
Pero sí
in
le
my sister
confié a mi
Salome that I
hermana
believed that
Salomé
my
que
son
creía
was
que mi
destined
hijo
to be a
estaba
great
destinado
teacher.
a ser un gran maestro.
I returned to Nazareth
Volví
a
a Nazaret
different woman than I
distinta
had
como había
left,
partido,
more certain,
más segura,
more at peace with what
más en
was to
paz con lo que
come.
estaba por venir.
I am
Soy
Joseph.
José.
My father was a
Mi padre fue
carpenter, and so
carpintero
was
y yo
I,
también,
until
hasta que
in
con el
time I
tiempo me
became a
convertí en
contractor.
contratista.
Mary and I
María y yo
belonged to the
pertenecíamos a
middle
la
class
clase
of our
media de
time.
nuestro tiempo.
We were
No
not in
pasábamos
need,
necesidad,
but we had
pero
just
teníamos
enough.
lo justo.
I
Yo
contributed
contribuía
to the
además al
support of my
sustento de
parents
mis
as well,
padres,
for my
pues mi
father
padre
had
había
become
quedado
disabled.
incapacitado.
I was a
Yo era
man
un
of
hombre
few
de
words.
pocas palabras.
The harsh
La dura
conditions of our
condición de
people
nuestro pueblo
always
siempre
saddened
me
me.
apenó.
In my
En
youth,
mi
I
juventud
was more
era de
cheerful
carácter
at a
más alegre.
disposition. I met
María
Mary
conocí
in
en
the home of
casa
her
de sus
parents,
padres,
Joaquim and Hannah,
Joaquín y
when they
Ana,
hired
cuando me
me to
contrataron
build a
para
room.
construir una habitación.
During that
Aquel
encounter,
encuentro
certainly that
ciertamente
would change my
cambiaría
life.
mi vida.
We were married
Nos
at her
casamos
home
en su casa.
when I was
Yo tenía
21 years
20
old,
años.
after a
Luego
courtship
noviazgo
according to
con
custom.
sus padres.
Soon
Poco
afterward, we
después,
moved
nos
to the
mudamos a la
house that I
casa que
built with the
construí
help
con la
of two
ayuda
of
de
my
dos de mis
brothers.
hermanos.
When Mary told
Cuando
me
María
what
me
Gabriel
contó lo
had
que
told
Gabriel
her,
le había
I
dicho,
could not sleep
no
for
pude
several
dormir
nights.
durante varias noches.
I trusted her
Confiaba en ella
completely,
plenamente,
but I
pero
doubted
dudaba de
that
la
visit.
visitación.
She had kept
Ella
a
había
secret for
guardado el
weeks,
secreto durante
reflecting
semanas,
alone
reflexionando
until
sola
she
hasta
knew with
saber con
certainty that
certeza
she
que
was
estaba
pregnant.
encinta.
So one night,
Entonces,
I had an
una noche tuve un
impressive
sueño muy
dream.
impresionante.
A
Un
radiant
mensajero
messenger said to me,
resplandeciente me dijo,
by the
por
mandate of he
mandato
who
de aquel
reigns
que
in the
reina en las
heavens,
alturas,
I appear unto you to
aparezco ante
speak
ti
to you
para
about the
hablarte
child
del
that
hijo
Mary
que
is
aguarda
carrying,
María,
and who will
y quien
become a
llegará a
great
ser
light in this
luz
world.
en el mundo.
In him there will
En
be
él
life,
habrá vida,
and his life
y
will
su
be the
vida
light of
será la luz
mankind.
de la humanidad.
To all he
A
will
todos
reveal that they are
revelará que
children
son
of
hijos de
God.
Dios.
Upon awakening,
Al
I never
despertar,
doubted
ya no
again.
dudé nunca más.
Our families
Nuestras
had a good
familias
level of
tenían un buen
education.
nivel de instrucción.
I was a
Yo era
thinker.
un pensador.
Religious
Lo
matters,
religioso
I
seguía
followed
la
the Eastern
tendencia
tendency,
oriental,
the
la de
Babylon trends,
Babilonia,
more
más
attached to the
apegada a
forms
las
and
formas
the
y a las
scriptures.
escrituras.
Mary had a
María
more
tenía una
liberal
visión
approach,
más
more
liberal,
holistic,
más
Hellenistic
helenística.
approach.
Sin
We
duda, nos
complemented each other without a
complementábamos.
doubt. I am Zacharias, a Jewish priest. My son John was born in the city of Judah on March 25th of that year, 7 BC. Elizabeth and I rejoiced greatly with his arrival. After the doubt, after those weeks, which I myself refused to believe what my wife was telling me, just as Gabriel had announced, there he was, alive, real, the promise fulfilled. On the 8th day, we presented him for circumcision. We did not name him our family name or my own name, as was the custom, but rather the name that Gabriel had told us to call him John. I sent my nephew toward Nazareth so that he can carry the news to Mary and to Joseph. It was important that they know that the promise of Gabriel had been fulfilled on our side, just as it would be fulfilled on their side. Elizabeth and I were convinced that the child that Mary was expecting was destined to be the liberator of mankind, and that our son John would be his predecessor. From his tender infancy, we encouraged him with the idea of becoming a spiritual leader. He was raised knowing that his life would have a purpose, a greater purpose, preparing the path for someone greater than even he. That was our part, and we fulfilled that promise, what Gabriel had entrusted in us. I am Caesar Augustus, Emperor of Rome. In the month of March of the year 8 BC, I decreed that all inhabitants of the empire should be counted. This was a necessary census to improve the system of taxes. The census would extend to every province, to every city, to every family under the dominion of Rome. In Palestine, the census was delayed for 1 year because of King Herod's difficulties with his own people. So, in the year 7 BC, every man by decree had to register in the city of the origin of their family. I never knew what that decree would set into motion. The decree by the emperor forced me to travel to Bethlehem, and it was that 6 generations earlier, a descendant of David named Sadak adopted an orphan, one of my ancestors. Even though it's not a blood tie, we were related as members of the house of David in that fashion. Mary was not required to come. I was authorized to register my entire family without her having to move with me. I tried to prevent her from going. She was pregnant and the road was long. But Mary is not one of those women that just waits. When I woke up that morning, she had already prepared all the provisions, enough for 3 to 4 days of travel. It was no use arguing with her. Deep down, I was so glad that she was actually accompanying me. We were cheerfully set out on August the 8th of the year 7 BC. We only had one pack animal. Mary rode it on the back with the provisions, and I walked leading the dog team. The first day, we crossed the foothills of Mount Gilboa. At nightfall, we camped beside the Jordan. There, seated in the darkness, we spoke at length about what kind of son would be our son. She said, a liberator. I said, a teacher. That conversation remained engraved in me forever. On day 2, we continued our path. At midday, we stopped to have lunch at the foot of Mount Sartaba, from where we saw the entire Jordan Valley. At dusk, we reached Jericho and spent the night at an inn in the outskirts of the city. On day 3, very early in the morning, on August 20th, we resumed our journey. We reached Jerusalem before noon, visited the temple, and then continued on the road until we reached Bethlehem in the afternoon. The inn was completely full. I looked for lodging with distant relatives, but they had no place to stay. Finally, they told us that the hewn stone beneath the inn had been cleaned and that they could be used as lodging. I left the donkey in the courtyard. I took the bags of clothing and provisions and went down with Mary down the stone steps. We settled in a room to store grains that were prepared for travelers, facing the stables and the animals' mongers. We felt fortunate to have found an actual place so comfortable. She was exhausted and she felt unwell. She asked me to stay by her side. I had thought that we were going to leave to go register immediately, but I stayed. The registration can wait at that moment. Throughout that night, we were very restless. We slept very little. The contractions began at dawn on August the 21st. In the stable, there were other women lodged there that night. We did not know them. They were companions of the road, nothing more. I was in labor all that morning, and when these tender travelers saw that moment that I had come, they stayed and helped me to give birth. At noon of August 21st of the year 7 BC, our child was born. I wrapped him with cloth that I had brought from Nazareth, and I laid him in the nearest manger. Our son was born exactly like any other child of the realm that before then or after then had come to the world. We named them as Gabriel had instructed, Joshua ben Joseph, Jesus. A long time later, we were already there in the mansion world. We learned that the seraphims of Urantia sang hymns of glory during the manger of Bethlehem, but they were not detected by human ears at that moment. We imagined that it was something sublime and beautiful. day, I went to register for the census. On the way there, I ran into a man we each had met 2 nights earlier in Jericho. When I told him where we were, he took me to see one of his friends that had another room in the inn and gladly gave it to us. That same afternoon, we moved and remained there almost 3 weeks until we managed to find lodging in the house of a distant relative. On day 2, I sent word to Elizabeth so she would know that the promised son had arrived. And on the 8th day, we took him to be circumcised. Zachariah and Elizabeth invited us to go to Jerusalem. There we spoke about the destiny of our children. They convinced me to stay in Bethlehem for a bit longer than we had intended. We remained there for more than a year, and I devoted myself to doing carpentry work. That is how those days were: hectic, wonderful, and decisive. And from these incredible experiences surrounding the birth of our sons, over time, several myths arose. We are priests that come from Ur in Mesopotamia, and we want to share with you that some time ago, in our own land, a religious teacher told us about something that we could not ignore. He had a dream. In that dream, he was informed that the light of life was about to appear on earth in the form of a child among the Jewish people. That was enough for us to undertake the journey in search of him. We arrived in Jerusalem and we began to search. We spent several days asking, inquiring, without result. We were about to give up and return home to Ur when we met a Jewish priest named Zachariah. Zachariah listened to us and then told us something that changed everything. He believed that the child that we were seeking was Jeshua, a newborn of Bethlehem. He suggested that we go there. And so we did. We went to Bethlehem, and at last we found him. There he was, the light of the world. The promised child was already almost 3 weeks old when we arrived. We observed him. We admired him. We left him our offerings with Mary, his mother, and then we returned home. Now I want to tell you something that very few people know. No star guided us to Bethlehem. That beautiful legend originated in another way. Jesus was born at noon of August 21st in the year 7 BC. That same year, in May, in September, and in December, there was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the constellation of Pisces. The Babylonian priests who observed the heavens recognized this conjunction as an extraordinary sign in the heavens and proclaimed it throughout the Eastern world. Based on these events, well-intentioned believers of successive generations built this attractive legend of the Star of Bethlehem and the Three Kings. That was an astronomical sign that circulated between the people of the East. As you can see, it was not our star that guided us step by step. In reality, we set out from Ur to Jerusalem. And from there, Zachariah was the one who sent us to Bethlehem. Moses taught that every firstborn child belongs to the Lord, and that instead of his sacrifice, we could redeem him by paying 5 shekels to an authorized priest. There was also a ceremonial purification for the mother because of the supposed uncleanness of childbirth. It was accustomed to do both things at the same time. So we went to the temple in Jerusalem to present Jesus before the priest and thus fulfill both obligations. At that time, we had little savings, and this justified our humble offering of only 2 young pigeons that Moses had foreseen for the mothers of limited means. I knew that the day would come, and I prepared everything in advance. In the temple courtyards, it was frequent to see 2 people of my trust completely: Simon, a singer from Judah, and Anna, a poetess from Galilee. We were close friends. I had entrusted them with the secret of John and that of Jesus. The 2 had been waiting for a long time now to see the Messiah arrive, and my word was enough for them to believe that Jesus was the expected liberator. We had agreed of a simple sign. When the procession of the firstborns passed next to me, I would raise the hand and I would greet them immediately when Jesus passed. That would be enough for them. Simon and Anna would know exactly who was the child. For that occasion, I wrote a poem. I could not sing the poem myself, so I gave it to Simon. When I saw Zacharias' sign, I stepped forward and I sang Anna's poem before the astonishment of Joseph, of Mary, and of all of those that were gathered in the temple, before the temple courts.
Bendito sea el Señor, que visitó a su pueblo con amor, ha traído redención, luz y salvación, cumpliendo su promesa con fidelidad. Tu niño prometido, anunciarás el reino del Altísimo, luz para los que viven en tinieblas, paz para los pies que buscan su camino. Ahora, Señor, deja que tu siervo parta en paz, porque mis ojos contemplaron la salvación que preparaste para todos los pueblos, luz resplandeciente para el mundo entero.
On the way back to Bethlehem, Joseph and I remained silent, confused, and breathless. I was troubled by Anna's words, the aged poetess. I too was troubled, but for very different reasons. I did not approve of that premature effort to make Jesus the awaited Messiah of the Jewish peoples. I am Herod the Great, King of Judea. My spies informed me of the visit to Bethlehem of 3 priests from Ur and of what had occurred in the temple in Jerusalem. I summoned those priests and I questioned them personally about the new king of the Jews. They only said that the child had been born of a woman who came to Bethlehem with her husband to register in the census, and I was not satisfied with their answers. I gave them a bag of money and I charged them with finding the child. Since the priest did not return, I began to suspect. My spies returned to deliver to me a complete report on what had happened in the temple, with a copy of part of the song that Simon performed. But it did not occur to them to follow the parents of the child. I ordered them to set to locate Joseph and Mary. When Elizabeth and I learned that Herod had ordered a search for Joseph and Mary, we stayed away from Bethlehem as to not arise any suspicion. Joseph was afraid to look for work because he could be seen, and their meager savings were disappearing fast. the
El
child
niño
Jesus
Jesús
had
había
been
sido
hidden
escondido en
in
casa
the
de
home
unos
of some of
familiares.
Joseph's family.
Me enfadé mucho
Because I
cuando
became
me
furious when they
dijeron que
told
no
me that they did
sabían
not
dónde
know where he
estaba.
was, I
Ordené
ordered a
una búsqueda
systematic search
sistemática en
in
todas
all of the
las
homes
casas
in
de
Bethlehem
Belén y el
and the killing of
asesinato de
all
todos
male
los niños
children
varones de
that
menos
were
de
under
2
2
años
years
de
of
edad.
age.
Cuando
When
Herodes
Herod
dio
gave
esa
that
orden,
order,
un
a
creyente de
believer
la corte
from
de
Herod's
Herodes se
court learned
enteró
about it
y se lo
and
comunicó a
communicated this to
Zacarías,
Zechariah,
quien a
that
su
in
vez los
turn
envió de
immediately
inmediato
sent us
un
a
mensajero
message
a
to
Belén.
Bethlehem.
Aquella
That
misma
very
noche,
night,
antes
before
de que
dawn
llegara el
arrived,
amanecer,
the
salimos
three
los
of us
tres de
left
Belén rumbo a
Bethlehem bound for
Alejandría,
Alexandria
sin llamar
without
la
attracting
atención.
attention.
Zacarías
Zechariah
nos
had given
había
us the
dado el
money
dinero
that was
necesario
necessary
para
for the
viajar a
travel to
Egipto,
Egypt,
nuestro
our new
nuevo
destination. During our stay in Bethlehem, everything was uncertainty and anxiety. That's why I did not wean the child until we reached Alexandria, where for the first time since we left Nazareth, we were able to lead a normal life. We settled with relatives of Joseph, a well-to-do family, and thanks to them, we had a stable roof from day one. I found work as a carpenter shortly after arriving. Then they promoted me to foreman of a large group of workers that were employed in the construction of one of the public buildings that were being erected in Alexandria at that time. That experience was what gave me the idea of becoming a contractor and a builder when I returned to Nazareth. In Bethlehem, I was a carpenter. In Alexandria, I understood that I could do something more. During the first years of Jesus' infancy, I maintained a long and constant watch over him. We could not allow anything to happen to him that might endanger his well-being and his future mission. In the home where we lived, there were 2 children the same age as my son, and in the neighborhood another 6 who had similar ages that were acceptable playmates. Little by little, Joseph made me see that so much protection would make the child self-conscious and self-centered, so I agreed to be more flexible, but without stopping to watch over him constantly. During the 2 years when we were in Alexandria, Jesus enjoyed good health and grew as a normal child. Apart from a very few close friends and relatives, Joseph and I had decided not to tell anyone else that our child was a son of promise. I am Joseph's relative, whom they told me the secret. I revealed it to a few friends in Memphis, descendants of Ignaton, and they in turn contacted a small group of believers from here, from Alexandria. Shortly before my family returned to Palestine, that group of believers from Memphis and from Alexandria met with us in the sumptuous house of my relatives and benefactor to wish us good fortune and to pay homage to the child. They gave him a complete copy of the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, but not before trying to convince us to stay in Egypt. It seemed to them that the Son of Destiny would have a worldwide influence, a better influence as a resident of Alexandria rather than from any place in Palestine. Mary and I delayed our departure to Nazareth until after receiving the news of the death of Herod. When the day came for our return to Nazareth, we sailed from Alexandria on a boat that belonged to our friend Ezrion, bound for Joppa. Then we went to Bethlehem, and there we stayed for 1 month, having conversations with some friends and relatives to decide whether to stay there or to continue to Nazareth. Mary still wanted Jesus to grow up in Bethlehem, the city of David, because she considered it would be the most fitting place to occupy the throne of David. But I did not believe that my son would become the liberating king of Israel. And I feared that at any city in Judea, Herod's threat would continue in force. By October, Joseph had succeeded and allowed us to convince that the best would be to return to Nazareth. At the beginning of October, we set out for Bethlehem. Mary and the child was on a donkey that we acquired, while 5 relatives and I walked beside them. Throughout the path, we agreed not to mention to no one the fact that Jesus was the Son of Promise. And now, yes, the 2 of us faithfully kept that promise. After 4 days on the road from Bethlehem, We arrived safe and sound to Nazareth. We arrived without notice. Our house was occupied by one of my married brothers, who was greatly surprised when he saw us appear. Our journey had been so secretive that neither Mary's family nor mine even knew that we had left Alexandria. The next day, my brother moved out with his family, and for the first time since the birth of Jesus, we were able to enjoy life in our own home with our small family. In less than a week, I had already found work as a carpenter. We were very happy. Jesus had 3 years old and 3 months when we returned to Nazareth. He had endured all those journeys very well. He enjoyed excellent health, and he was full of enthusiasm and childish joy, finally having a place of his own to play and run. Though it is true, he greatly missed his playmates from Alexandria. The 4th year of life that Jesus was there was a period of normal physical development and of enormous mental activity. That year, he made his best friend, Jacob, the neighbor's son, who was more or less his same age. Jesus and Jacob were always happy together, and thus they grew up in a great friendship and loyal companionship. The most important event of that period was the birth of our second son, Santiago or James, the dawn of April 2nd of the year 3 BC. Jesus was happy to have a little brother. He would remain for long hours watching over the baby's activities with that very serious attention that he gave to everything. Around the middle of that same summer, Joseph built a small workshop near the village fountain and the caravan stop. As Jesus grew, and when he was in school, he scattered his time helping Mary in household chores and watched me working at the workshop. In the meantime, he listened to the conversations and the gossip from the travelers and of all the travelers that came forth from the 4 corners of the earth. For him, that was an endless world. 1 month before Jesus turned 4 years old, in Nazareth there was an epidemic and stomach sickness from travelers from caravan. I was so frightened by the danger to Jesus or James would be infected that I dressed them both and I left with them to my brother's country home, several kilometers to the south of Nazareth. We did not return to Nazareth until over 2 months had passed. Jesus greatly enjoyed his time with that experience. It was his first contact with a farm. A little more than a year later, after the return to Nazareth, the child Jesus, at 4 years and a half of age, made his first moral decision. And at that moment, there came to indwell in him a thought adjuster, the divine gift of the Paradise Father. This thought adjuster had previously served Macchiventa Melchizedek, and therefore already knew what it meant to accompany an incarnate supermortal being. That same day, the supervision, direct and personal supervision of the universe rulers over the integrity of the incarnation of Michael stopped at that moment. From that moment on, and throughout his entire life, the custody of Jesus was entrusted to the thought adjuster that indwelt in him, and to the seraphic guardians that were associated, supplemented time to time by the ministry of the midway creatures, assigned to specific tasks according to the instructions of their planetary superiors. What a beautiful voyage and moving voyage that we just lived. It reminds us the immense closeness of the Father and his infinite love made flesh within us. Thank you, all of us, for accompanying us throughout this beautiful journey. And to continue enjoying this spirit, we want to share with you 2 contributions before our next break. First, a video dedicated to the smallest in our homes, the young people created by Ileani Morales, titled Jesus the Child. Hopefully many children can enjoy this. And second, we will listen a beautiful song by our beloved friend, Ramiro Hacking, titled His Will, Su Voluntad. Hello, everybody. My name is Eliani, and after this beautiful celebration about the birth of Jesus, I would like to have you stay here for an additional moment to speak about something very beautiful. The majority of the time when we think about Jesus, we imagine someone very big. And today, I want us to think and remember that Jesus was also a child, just like you and I were. Today, I'm accompanied by Mimi. Hello, everyone. I'm Mimi.
Yo soy Nini.
Nini is that representations of that's always asking himself everything. He always seeks explanations to many things. He wants to understand everything better. And today, Nini has a very big and very important question. Jesus, was he born with a different advantage, different from any other child? Was he born with an advantage? Jesus was born as any other children of this realm are born. Mary was his mother and Joseph was his human father. Both cared for him and raised him with great affection and with lots of love. He did not come speaking from the cradle. He did not skip his childhood. He grew up step by step. Something that should indeed be highlighted is because of the importance of his mortal presence on Urantia. During the early years of his life, there was celestial supervision, which was special, related to the integrity of his incarnation as a child. But this was something invisible. That means that it was something that no one else can see. It was something that actually occurred, but Jesus did not experience it as a privilege consciously. I understand. So from outside, he looked like a normal child. Yes, exactly. A healthy, happy child that is full of love, very observant. He asked many questions and he wanted to understand everything. And what happened when he was about 4 years of age? Well, when Jesus was 4.5 years old, he made his first moral decision, conscious and sincere decision. And in that very moment, a thought adjuster arrived to indwell in him, a gift directly from the Paradise Father. Jesus, as a child, was very observant and asked many questions about rain, about weather, about animals, about nature, customs, prayer, and about God. Many times, Joseph and Mary could answer those questions, but many times they could not. So Jesus gradually started to realize that although his parents loved him dearly, they did not know everything, and that also was part of his human growth. Did he have friends? Yes. For example, Jesus had a very good friend named Jacob. He was the son of a neighbor. They played together, they accompanied each other, and they became great friends and very loyal to each other. Jesus also had siblings. For example, when James was born, he was so happy. And since he was such an observant child, he liked to stay and watch over James, his little brother's behavior and the behavior of his and how he acted. And well, with time, he learned to be an amazing older brother. He learned to take care of him, to help him. He learned to share. That means he learned to coexist within a real life family. Jesus really loved to be near Joseph's workshop playing with wooden blocks. He really enjoyed his first experience on a farm. He loved nature. He loved seeing the stars, drawing landscapes. He had a tender heart, very tender heart. He helped with the household chores. He observed the work that Joseph did. He also listened to travelers' conversations, and he learned from everything. That means that for Jesus, daily life was literally a school in itself because he was always learning more and more. Jesus went to school when he was 7 years of age. He was very capable, very intelligent. He asked many more questions than his other peers, but he didn't do this because he wanted to show off. He did this only because he genuinely wanted to understand. He wanted to know more things. He, despite being a very strong child for his age, he did not like violence at all. So, for example, his friend Jacob, which admired him and loved him dearly, became like his defender because he didn't like anyone to abuse Jesus because he rejected to physically fight. So Jesus was someone that was pretty firm but never violent. Since he was very young, Jesus wanted to speak with his Father in heaven in a natural fashion. After saying his prayers, he always looked at heaven and he wanted to have a closer conversation with the Father. For Jesus, God was not a distant presence, it was his Father in heaven. All of us can speak with we can all talk to
podemos
God.
hablar con Dios.
Children,
Los
adults,
niños, los
young
adultos,
people,
los jóvenes,
at any
en
time
cualquier momento
that we
que
wish.
lo deseemos.
Jesus, as a
Jesús
child,
mismo
reminds
nos
us that
recuerda que la
spiritual
vida
life
espiritual
begins
empieza
from the
desde lo más
simplest things,
sencillo,
from
desde
school,
la escuela,
from
los
friends,
amigos,
from a
desde una
sincere
pregunta
question,
sincera,
from making a
desde tomar una
good
decisión
decision,
buena,
from having
desde tener
intimate
una conversación
conversations with
íntima
our
con el
Heavenly
Padre
Father.
Celestial.
That's why
Por
we
eso
want to
queremos
invite
invitar a
everyone,
todos,
children, young
niños,
people, and
jóvenes y
adults to
adultos, a
continue to
seguir
learn about
conociendo
Jesus'
su
life
vida y
and his
sus
teachings.
enseñanzas.
In the
En
Urantia
el libro de
book, we
Urantia
find a wonderful
una
story,
historia maravillosa,
the story
la
of the Son
historia
of
del Hijo del
Man
Hombre
and
y
the Son
del
of
Hijo
God.
de Dios.
Thank you for
Gracias
accompanying
por
us.
acompañarnos.
May
Que
the
la
life
vida
of
de
Jesus
Jesús nos
inspire all
inspire
of us
a
to grow
crecer
in
con
love,
amor,
joy,
alegría,
truth,
verdad
and
y
trust in our
confianza
Heavenly
en
Father.
nuestro Padre Celestial.
Vivo intentando andar por mi camino, siempre dispuesto a hacer su voluntad. Busco alguna señal en mi destino para saber cuál es su voluntad. Lo que el Padre quiere es un mandato universal. Él nos pide que seamos perfectos, como perfecto es Él. Y Él está aguardando por tu decisión. Cuando sientas temor o incertidumbre, nunca olvides que Él te acompañará. Todo mejorará en nuestras vidas, si es tu voluntad, que se haga su voluntad. Para empezar a actuar como Él lo haría, cierra los ojos y comienza a escuchar. Si enfocas tu atención en su presencia, será fácil para Él poderte guiar. Lo que el Padre quiere es un mandato universal. Él ha dicho que seamos perfectos, como perfecto es Él. Y Él está aguardando por tu decisión. Cuando sientas temor o incertidumbre, nunca olvides que Él te acompañará. Todo mejorará en nuestras vidas, si es tu voluntad, que se haga su voluntad. Es mi voluntad, que se haga tu voluntad.
Dans la sainte, un silence sacré, le maître s'avance, le regard apaise, n'ose qu'un bête, troublé et fidèle, un souffle d'éternel descend les cieux si près. À la table du maître, l'amour s'est livré, non par le glaive, mais pour nous élever. Pain de vie Jésus nous appelle à l'unité. Lave nos pieds d'un geste divin, renversant l'orgueil, élevant les ciels. Aimez-vous, dit-il, comme je vous ai aimé. Son royaume est en nous, si nous savons aimer. Le traître se lève, l'on va parler, mais la lumière reste, elle peut plier. L'appel de Jésus, douce et infinie, traverse les âges, éclaire nos vies. À table du Maître, l'amour a prié jusqu'à la croix pour nous relever. Pain de vie, coupe de fidélité, nous marchons avec lui en vérité. In the upper room, a silence falls divine. The Master enters with a peaceful sign. 12 hearts are beating, troubled yet so true. A breath of heaven descending from on high. At the Master's table, love was given free, not by the sword, but to set us free. Bread of life, cup of truth displayed, Jesus calls us all to unity. He washes our feet with a gesture from above, casting down all pride, lifting us with love. Love one another as I have loved you. His kingdom dwells within if we know how to love. A traitor rises, shadows start to fall, but the light remains, it will not bend at all. The peace of Jesus, gentle and so pure, crosses through the ages, lighting our lives for sure. At the Master's table, love has brightly shone, even to the cross, to lift us as His own. Bread of life, cup of faithfulness, we walk with Him, always in truth and righteousness.
We want to remember 4 brothers and sisters, readers that accompanied us in this adventure and left us this year. Jaime Rey and his beloved wife, Claudia Quintero, both from Colombia. Julieta Quintero from Venezuela, and Jorge Laure from Brazil. All four loved the book and sought to live its truths. And now, Dolores Niz, a resident of the United States, also passed away. And though we do not know the destiny of each soul, we bid them farewell with the hope that this revelation gives us that life does not end here, but is transformed, and we will carry them in our hearts. Drink of this cup. I will not drink of this cup, this chalice any long until we drink from it in the eternal toast of the Father.
Take this cup, all of you, and drink of it. I will not again drink this cup with you until I drink in new form with you in the Father's eternal kingdom.
The Remembrance Supper was the only ceremony Jesus instituted while he was here. In fact, paper 179 says, when it is partaken by those who are Son-believing and God-knowing, on all such occasions the Master is really present. The Remembrance Supper is the believer's symbolic rendezvous with Michael. So when we take part in the Remembrance Supper, we literally are with him. And we invite you to take part in this now with us. Section 5 of paper 179 shows how Jesus established the Remembrance Supper. As they brought Jesus the third cup of wine, the cup of blessing, he arose from the couch and taking the cup in his hands, blessed it, saying, "Take this cup, all of you, and drink of it. This shall be the cup of my remembrance. This is the cup of blessing of a new dispensation of grace and truth. This shall be to you the emblem of the bestowal and ministry of the divine spirit of truth. And I will not again drink this cup with you until I drink in new form with you in the Father's eternal kingdom." So if you have something to drink and you want to pause with us for a minute and have a sip and remember Michael and his cup of blessing. When they had finished drinking this new cup of remembrance, the Master took up the bread and, after giving thanks, broke it in pieces and, directing them to pass it around, said, "Take this bread of remembrance and eat it. I have told you that I am the bread of life, and this bread of life is the united life of the Father and the Son in one gift. The word of the Father, as revealed in the Son, is indeed the bread of life." And if you have a bite of something to eat as your bread, we'll do that now. When they had partaken of the bread of remembrance, the symbol of the living word of truth incarnated in the likeness of mortal flesh, they all sat down. After they had engaged in meditation for a few moments, Jesus continued speaking. "When you do these things, recall the life I have lived on earth among you, and rejoice that I am to continue to live on earth with you and to serve through you. As individuals, contend not among yourselves as to who shall be the greatest. Be you all as brethren. And when the kingdom grows to embrace large groups of believers, likewise should you refrain from contending for greatness or seeking preferment between such groups." When Jesus had thus established the supper of remembrance, he said to the 11, "And as often as you do this, do it in remembrance of me. And when you remember me, first look back upon my life in the flesh. Recall I was once with you, and then by faith discern that you shall all sometimes sup with me in the Father's eternal kingdom." So happy birthday, Jesus. Thank you, Michael, for this master class in trust, faith, and courage. God bless you all.
Hello, greetings to everyone. On behalf of Grupo 21, we want to send you a big hug in gratitude, thanking all of you for being here, sharing this encounter with so much love, and for appreciating what was prepared for this celebration. We have seen in part one an approximate scene of the birth and life of Jesus as was narrated by the Urantia teachings from the previous days to his birth until that significant moment where at 5 years of age, he actually received a thought adjuster. And now I am so happy to welcome to this you all to the second part that actually complements what you saw earlier in part one. Since some of you, as some of you know, so related to the birth of Jesus, there's many different events that for centuries were transformed into traditions that were actually far off from what actually really occurred. That's why in this part two, we will clarify that those events. Up next, you will see a series of videos that were prepared by several different groups, focusing on the historical facts and touching upon the myths and traditions surrounding the birth and some clarifications that the Urantia book helps us to understand. Prepare your notebooks if you want to share any comments as well, and take notes if you want to ask any questions so you can ask at the end. Before you see the prepared material, in the spirit of this celebration, I leave you with a musical gift first titled The One That Illuminates Our Life.
Mi alma canta al que ilumina la vida, mi corazón se eleva en su gracia bendecida. Él mira al humilde y lo llena de consuelo, levanta al cansado y lo acerca a su cielo. Su misericordia abraza al que confía, su luz disipa sombras y renueva cada día. Su misericordia abraza al que confía, su luz disipa sombras y renueva cada día. Fuerza derriba el orgullo altanero, su mano sostiene al pequeño y sincero, su promesa vive en cada corazón que espera, su amor florece eterno y toda pena supera.